Year-over-year NFL teams are looking to improve, and the NFC East teams are no different. There has not been a repeat division winner since the Donovan McNabb-led Eagles accomplished this back in 2003 and 2004, when the Eagles went to the NFC Championship game and to the Super Bowl in back-to-back years. This division almost always comes down to the wire and is one of the more entertaining divisions to watch because of it. There are a lot of players in this division worth watching alone, such as Saquon Barkley, Ezekiel Elliott, and Carson Wentz. But how will their teams fare in 2019? The Cowboys are the defending division champions and could potentially be without their best player for some of the season. In this video, I will break down each team's offseason and schedule and predict what their records will be and how they will do as a whole in 2019. Before I get started though, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel as all support is very much appreciated. Now with that being said, let's begin. The way that the division breakdowns will work is I'll go team by team in order of how the teams finished in last year's standings worst to first. So that makes the New York Giants the first team to project. This sounds obvious, but the team runs through second-year running back Saquon Barkley. Barkley is an all-world talent and in my mind already the best running back in the entire NFL. He had over 2,000 total yards as a rookie and should be just as good in year number 2. The Giants made a big splash in the first round of the draft as they took quarterback Daniel Jones out of Duke in a highly controversial pick. Jones has looked good so far in the preseason and I want him to succeed, but we'll see how much opportunity he gets in 2019 as Giants owner John Mara has said that Eli is their guy. I personally think Eli hasn't been their guy for a few years now, but we'll see how it plays out given the Giants have almost no receivers for the first 4 weeks of the year. I like their second of 3 first-round picks in Dexter Lawrence, who is a humongous human being, as he is listed at 6'4", 342. The Giants' final first-round pick should be a solid corner for years in DeAndre Baker from Georgia. Aside from the Jones pick, I liked the Giants' draft, as their next pick was O'Shane Ximines, who hopefully can translate his production from college to the pros. The final draft pick I'll discuss is corner Julian Love from Notre Dame. The Giants potentially got 4 or 5 starters from this draft alone, which will help out their future. Now taking a look at their schedule, their first 3 games are at Dallas, home against Buffalo, and at the Bucs. With how little weapons Eli will have aside from Saquon, I could see the Giants starting out 0-3. The Bills, in my opinion, are a dark horse playoff contender, and I think the Bucs will put up a lot of points this year, with quarterback guru Bruce Arians as their new head coach. It wouldn't surprise me if the Giants are 1-2 or even 2-1, but I do think they start out 0-3. The next 3 are home against the Redskins, home against the Vikings, and at the Patriots. I think they'll lose all 3 for a few reasons. The Redskins' defense, in my opinion, is quietly very, very good, and especially their run defense. I know Saquon had a huge play against them last year at FedEx Field, but their defense is still good nonetheless. The Vikings and Patriots flat out have better rosters than the Giants and should be able to handle them pretty easily. The following 3 games are home against the Cardinals, at the Lions, and home against the Cowboys. I think they'll beat the Cardinals and give the Lions a good game, but lose in Motor City. I think the Giants can split with the Cowboys because they usually play each other pretty tight, but I don't know if they will. It'll be a good game, and I really hope it gets to be a Saquon versus Zeke type game. The next 4 are at the Jets, a bye week, at Chicago, and home against the Packers. I could definitely see them beating the Jets, but it depends on how well they get pressure on second-year quarterback Sam Darnold and how uncomfortable they can make him in the pocket. I don't see any way possible that they can go into Chicago and beat the Bears, but this is the NFL and stranger things have definitely happened before. The Packers game, in my opinion, is a huge toss-up because it depends how the Packers are doing at that point in the season. I personally think that they'll be 12-4 or 5-11 with no in between, so this game has huge variability. The final 4 are at the Eagles, home against the Dolphins, at the Skins, and home against the Eagles. I personally think they'll lose all of the remaining division games if both teams are healthy. I do think the Giants will beat the Dolphins though, and I think it's going to be a long season for Big Blue. I don't see them getting more than 4 to 5 wins. Moving on to the next team in the NFC East is the Washington Redskins. The Washington Redskins had a solid offseason in my opinion. They drafted arguably the best quarterback in the draft at 15th overall without having to give up any draft capital. They also took a physical specimen with their second first-round pick in Montez Sweat to boost an already impressive defensive line. I like the Redskins' defense a lot as they have the 2 Alabama boys in Deron Payne and Jonathan Allen up front, and Ryan Kerrigan, who quietly has 84.5 career sacks. Insert Montez Sweat, and he could have a great rookie year because of the matchups he'll get due to offensive lines not being able to double-team everybody. I like their third-round pick in Scary Terry McLaurin as it pairs Haskins with one of his college receivers. I like this move, and if it works out, I think other teams will start to use this as well in their drafting strategy. I think Bryce Love will be a serviceable backup because of Darius Geis and Adrian Peterson taking the majority of the carries. One final comment about the Redskins draft is I think they got one of the biggest steals of the entire draft in Kelvin Harmon, a 6th-round pick. I was surprised he fell as far as he did, and I hope he makes all the teams that pass on him regret that decision. They signed safety Landon Collins to a 6-year, $84 million deal. I like the signing because Collins has proven that he can be a very good safety, and at only 25 years old, it'll be a good contract for both sides if he keeps his level of play up. I would imagine in a few years that Derwin James and Jamal Adams will receive lengthy extensions from their teams and use his as a reference point, so I think the Redskins got good value from Collins' contract. I think Case Keenum will start for a few games and then ultimately the franchise will be turned over to Dwayne Haskins. Looking at their schedule now, I think they can start out 2-1 as easily as they can start out 0-3, as their first 3 games are at Philly, home against Dallas, and home against the Bears. I think they'll lose in Philly, but they definitely can beat Dallas at home, and I think they can beat Chicago as well. If they do end up beating Chicago, it'll be a very low-scoring game and a huge confidence boost for the Skins. The next 3 are at the Giants, home against the Pats, and home against the Dolphins. If they can bottle up Saquon Barkley, I think they should be able to handle the Giants fairly easily. I don't see them beating the Patriots in any way, and I do think they beat the Dolphins. Their record after 6 games I think will be around 3-3 or 4-2 depending on the quarterback play. They'll be competitive in every game because of how good the defense is. I truly think the Redskins defense is a top 10 defense and that they should be picked up in every fantasy league. The next 3 games are against Jimmy G and the 49ers, a reunion with Kirk Cousins in Minnesota, and at Buffalo. I'm personally not a Jimmy G fan at all, and I think they'll be able to handle San Francisco. I think they lose in Minnie on 3 days rest, and it'll be a hard-fought win for whoever comes out victorious in Buffalo. Through 9 games, I think the Skins will be around 5-4, give or take a game. Coming off a Week 10 bye, they have 2 straight home games against the Jets and Lions, which both can be wins. If all goes well, the Skins could easily be 7-4 through 11 games. The next 2 are at the Panthers and at the Packers, both of which I think are losses for the Redskins. I wouldn't be surprised if they go down to Bank of America and beat the Panthers, though. The final 3 are home against Philly, home against the Giants, and at Dallas. I think they'll probably end up losing 2 of those 3 games, but given that it is the NFC East, nothing would surprise me. I think the Skins are in for a 7-8 win season, which I honestly think is good for them, given their lack of receivers and a more than likely rookie quarterback playing most of the season. Moving on to the next team in the NFC East is the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles had a busy offseason to say the least. They reacquired former Eagle Deshaun Jackson from the Bucs for a swap of a 6th and a 7th round pick. That's great value for a player who the fans love and want to see, and a player who still probably has a few big plays left in the tank. They also traded for Jordan Howard, who is a solid back in his own right, and has 2 career 1,000-yard seasons under his belt. Both players will be loved by Eagles fans, and I think they'll each make a solid impact in 2019. I like what they did to add weapons around Carson Wentz. In the draft, they added a great pass-blocking player in Andre Dillard. They jumped the Texans, who surely would have taken him at pick 23, and I thought that was a phenomenal draft move by general manager Howie Roseman. As a Penn State fan, I like them taking Miles Sanders, who I think will be a solid NFL player. Sanders never got the chance to show his full potential at Penn State until his final year because he had an all-pro NFL running back in Saquon Barkley ahead of him on the depth chart for 2 of his 3 seasons. In his only season starting in college, he ran for nearly 1,300 yards on 5.8 yards per carry and 9 touchdowns. Him and Howard may not be the best fantasy choices because of the committee approach, but they'll be a great duo for the Eagles and definitely win them games. I also like them drafting wide receiver J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, as I think the Eagles have one of the deepest receiving corps in the NFL, with him, Alshon Jeffrey, Nelson Aguilar, and of course the aforementioned Deshaun Jackson. They have a pretty good pass-catching tight end in Zach Ertz as well. I think the Eagles in 2019 have one of, if not the most all-around talented rosters in the NFL. Taking a look at their schedule, they open up home against the Redskins, then go to Atlanta on Sunday Night Football, and come home to play Detroit. I think they'll be at worst 2-1 through their first 3 games, as Atlanta is a very good football team that was hampered by injuries last year. The next 3 are at the Packers on Thursday night, home against the Jets, and at the Vikings. I think it'll be a good game in Lambeau, and I think the Eagles win. I think they'll also win against the Jets, but lose to the Vikings. Through their first 6 games, I have them at 4-2. The following 3 are at Dallas, at Buffalo, and home against Chicago. This 4-game stretch of at Minnesota, at Dallas, at Buffalo, and home against the Bears is certainly no joke. It wouldn't surprise me if the Eagles go 1-3 during this stretch, but it also wouldn't surprise me if they go 4-0 either. This stretch will test how tough the team really is. After their much-needed Week 10 bye, they have back-to-back home games against the Patriots and the Seahawks, which are certainly both winnable. I think they win both, and after these games they go to Miami, which will be a certain win, play the Giants at home, another win, and play at the Redskins, which will probably be a hard-fought win. The final 2 games are home against Dallas and at the Giants. While I realize I have them winning all 7 of the final games after the bye, I think they'll probably end up losing 1 if not 2. It's tough to say which one specifically. I predicted the Eagles to go 11-5 in this video, but I don't doubt a 10-6 or 12-4 season out of them. They'll definitely be in contention for the NFC East title and potentially a first-round bye. Moving on to the defending NFC East champions is the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys had no first-round pick as it was spent on wide receiver Amari Cooper. That looks to be a good investment so far, as in the 9 games he played with the Cowboys, he had 53 catches for 725 yards and 6 touchdowns. Over a 16-game season, that equates to 94 catches for 1,289 yards and 11 touchdowns. That's very good production, and no fan base would complain about that. The Cowboys drafted Tristan Hill in the 2nd round and Penn State guard Connor McGovern in the 3rd. They took one of my favorite players in the 4th round and Tony Pollard, an offensive weapon out of Memphis, who could be seeing a lot of action in his rookie season. The Cowboys also signed Randall Cobb in the offseason after letting wide receiver Cole Beasley walk. I like Cobb and think his veteran and winning presence from Green Bay will help the team out in a positive way. They also have tight end Jason Witten coming out of retirement for 1 final year. Now, taking a look at their schedule, their first 3 games are, and I'm predicting this with the assumption Zeke plays, are home against the Giants, at the Redskins, and home against the Dolphins. I think they'll beat the Giants, have a very tough game against the Skins, and beat the Dolphins. At worst, I see them 2-1 after 3 games, if not 3-0. The next 3 are at the Saints, home against the Packers, and at the Jets. I think they'll win 2 of these 3 and be at worst 4-2 through 6 games, if not 5-1. I just don't see them beating the Saints in New Orleans. The Cowboys then play the Eagles at home, have a bye week, then go to the Giants on Monday night. The Eagles game will be very tough, and I think they pull the sweep on the Giants, given they are coming off of a bye. After the Giants, they have the Vikings at home, go to Detroit, and go to New England. The Vikings will be a tough game for both teams, and Dallas probably comes away with a W given the home field advantage. Detroit is no slouch either, but I think the Cowboys win in Motor City. I don't see them winning New England, and that's pretty self-explanatory why. The next 3 games are home against the Bills, which should be a win, at the Bears, and home against the Rams. I think they'll go 1-2 during this stretch, with the only win being against the Bills. The Bears and Rams are 2 very, very good football teams. The final 2 are 2 tough division games in Philly and home against the Redskins. I think the Cowboys go around 10-6 and the NFC East will go down to the wire again. There will more than likely be 2 teams from the NFC East go to the playoffs, and it will be the same 2 from last year. That's all I have for today's video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please like and subscribe to the channel. Again, thank you for watching, and have a great day.